Let's be real, some RPGs got buried, overshadowed, misunderstood, or dropped before they even had a chance to shine. But guess what? That doesn't mean they weren't great. Today, we're giving the spotlight back to 10 incredible RPGs that were slept on hard. Games that flopped at launch, got dragged by critics, or just slipped under the radar, but totally deserve a second shot. So if you've ever missed a hidden gem or judged a game too soon, buckle up. You're about to find your next favorite RPG. When Final Fantasy XIII dropped, it split the fan base right down the middle. Some people were all in on the flashy combat and epic cutscenes, while others were like, what is this hallway simulator? It tossed out a lot of what longtime fans expected, like open areas, deep exploration, classic RPG structure, and instead locked you into a tight, story-driven path that took its sweet time to actually open up. But here's the thing. When you strip away the noise and the hype, there's actually a solid game underneath. That combat system, way more strategic than it looks. The paradigm shift mechanic let you swap roles mid-fight, forcing you to think fast and adapt. Battles felt like a constant push and pull, and once you clicked with it, the system was addicting. Progression in Final Fantasy XIII also had its own flavor. Instead of traditional leveling, you had the Crystarium system, which looked like a glowing web of upgrades for each role. It wasn't super deep at first, but it let you tailor each character's strengths depending on how you wanted to play. As the game moved forward, the system expanded, giving you more freedom and some tough choices about where to invest your points. It's not flashy, but it added a nice layer of strategy that kept things interesting between battles. And Lightning might have seemed cold at first, but her arc grows across the trilogy. It's a slow burn, but by the end of Lightning Returns, she's one of the most developed characters in the franchise. The visuals still hold up today too. Even now, Final Fantasy XIII looks better than some modern RPGs, and that soundtrack is pure gold. Yeah, it had flaws. The pacing at the start was rough, and the linearity didn't sit well with everyone. But looking back, it was never a bad game, just one that launched with expectations it couldn't meet. Now, with time and distance, more players are giving it the credit it always deserved. Back when the remaster of Chrono Cross dropped, it should have been a celebration. Fans had waited years to revisit one of the most iconic RPGs from the PS1 era. But what they got? A mess, frame rate issues, sloppy visuals, and performance so bad it made the old PS3 version look like an upgrade. It felt rushed, like Square Enix just wanted to check a box and move on. Thing is, Chrono Cross deserved better. This game isn't just some nostalgia trip. It's got one of the most unique combat systems in any RPG, a time-bending narrative that still hits hard, and a massive cast of characters with real personality. One of the wildest things about Chrono Cross is how deep the elemental system goes. Every character, enemy, and spell is tied to a color-based element, like red for fire or blue for water, and the battlefield shifts depending on what's being used. The more you lean into one element, the more powerful it gets. But that also leaves you wide open to the opposite. It turns every fight into this strategic dance where timing and balance really matter. Plus, there's no traditional MP bar. Spells are slotted into grids, and using them costs stamina, not magic points. It flips the usual RPG rhythm on its head, and once it clicks, it's super satisfying. Thankfully, the remaster didn't stay broken forever. Over time, quiet updates started rolling out. The visuals got cleaned up, the performance issues smoothed out. And now? It finally feels like the remaster fans were promised in the first place. If you skipped it when it launched, now's the time to give it a real shot. Underneath all the early mess is still the same bold, unforgettable adventure that made Chrono Cross a classic. When Diablo 4 dropped, the hype was real. Everyone was ready for the next big chapter, and for a second, it looked like it delivered. But that didn't last long. Once players got deeper into it, the mood shifted fast. People started bailing, pointing fingers at broken balance, weird difficulty spikes, and an endgame that just didn't hit right. The internet lit up with complaints, and it felt like the game might not recover. But here's the thing, Blizzard didn't give up. They patched, reworked, and dropped a huge expansion that flipped the script. What was once a shaky launch is now a much tighter, more rewarding experience. The core loop finally clicks, the gear grind feels worthwhile, and the world is way more alive than it was at release. One thing that really sets it apart now is how exploration actually matters. The world isn't just big for the sake of it. It's packed with hidden dungeons, side quests, and events that feel organic instead of forced. You'll be riding through some cursed forest and boom, a world boss spawns. Or a random event pulls you into this chaotic fight with strangers. That constant sense of discovery makes the game feel alive, like something's always brewing just off the beaten path. Compared to where Diablo 3 started, Diablo 4 is already miles ahead. The combat feels heavier, the classes are more defined, and the whole atmosphere leans into that grim, gothic tone fans were begging for. And now, with the latest update, you've got deeper systems to mess with, better loot pacing, and new content that actually keeps you coming back. If you bounced off at launch, now's the time to come back. And if you've got Xbox Game Pass, there's literally no excuse not to try it. Back when Tales of Grace's F dropped on the Wii, almost nobody noticed. It came and went without much noise, lost in the shuffle of bigger names and flashier releases. But under the radar, there was something special: tight combat, a heartfelt story, and one of the most refined battle systems in the whole series. It just needed a second chance to really shine. That second chance came with the PlayStation 3 version. More content, better visuals, smarter balancing, the kind of polish that took a solid RPG and turned it into something way more memorable. Still, even with those upgrades, it never quite got the love it deserved. People were too busy chasing the next blockbuster to realize what they were missing. Fast forward to now, and Tales of Grace's F finally gets to breathe. The remastered version is out on modern platforms, and yeah, it still looks like a game from its time, but the gameplay? It holds up better than ever. The combat's fast, strategic, and super addictive. The character progression actually makes you care. And the story, while not as flashy as some, is full of genuine emotion and solid moments. One thing that makes Tales of Grace's F stand out is the title system. Each character unlocks different titles as you play, and those titles aren't just cosmetic. They actually shape how your characters grow. New skills, stat boosts, artes, all tied to the titles you equip and level up. If you're into RPGs with deep systems and rewarding fights, this one's worth a serious look. It's not trying to be the biggest or boldest game out there, but what it does really well. Before we keep going, quick moment. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps push the content to more people. And hey, if you want to take it a step further, becoming a channel member is a huge way to support what we're doing here. Thanks for hanging out and watching. Now let's jump back in. When Dragon's Dogma 2 dropped, the hype was real. Fans waited over a decade for this sequel, and after what the original pulled off, the bar was set sky high. We're talking massive open world, deep character builds, a crazy fun combat system, and of course that wild pawn mechanic that made the first game feel alive in a way most RPGs just didn't. But man, launch day hit like a truck. The game ran rough, really rough. On PC it was almost unplayable for a lot of people. Frame drops, bugs, crashes, you name it. Console players didn't have it much better. The internet lit up with complaints, refund requests flew, and even hardcore fans were frustrated. It was a mess, and honestly, it killed the buzz fast. But here's the thing. Beneath all that chaos was a game with serious potential. And Capcom didn't walk away. They pushed update after update, fixed the worst issues, and now, it's in a way better place. On current-gen consoles, it finally runs like it should have from day one. What makes Dragon's Dogma 2 worth it isn't just that it's fixed, it's that it nails what made the first game so good and then builds on it. The world feels massive and alive. The combat hits hard and stays satisfying. The freedom to create your own playstyle? Still awesome. And the way your pawns interact with the world? It's even more impressive now. One of the coolest things about Dragon's Dogma 2 is how the world doesn't just sit still waiting for you. Things shift based on the time of day, weather changes can mess with visibility and enemy behavior, and some quests only trigger if you're in the right place at the right time. Even traveling at night feels like a gamble. Monsters get tougher, it's harder to see, and the whole vibe gets way more intense. If you dropped it early, this is the time to come back. And if you skipped it because of all the noise, trust me, Dragon's Dogma 2 is finally the game we were all hoping for. There was nothing quite like Resonance of Fate when it dropped. Instead of swords and spells, it threw you into gunfights with a system that felt more like a mix of chess and an action movie. Every move had to be calculated, every shot mattered, and when it all clicked, the combat felt insanely good. Developed by Tri-Ace, the same team behind Star Ocean, this game tried something bold. It ditched the usual fantasy setting and dropped players into a gritty, dystopian world powered by strange tech and even stranger politics. And while most RPGs played it safe, Resonance of Fate asked you to learn a whole new way of fighting. That scared some folks off. It launched on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, but barely made a splash. Maybe it was the timing, maybe it was just too different. But whatever the reason, it didn't get the attention it deserved, which is a shame, because under all its quirks, there's a deep, rewarding game with some of the most stylish mechanics the genre's ever seen. One thing that often gets overlooked is how deep the character customization went. Not just stats or loadouts like full-on fashion. You could deck out your crew with different outfits, colors, and accessories, and the crazy part is, all of it showed up in every single cutscene and battle. It gave the whole game this weird, stylish edge, where you'd be pulling off slow-motion flips in combat, wearing sunglasses and a top hat, and it somehow worked. It didn't impact gameplay, but it gave the characters more personality and made the whole thing feel even more distinct. Years later, the remaster brought it back with sharper visuals and better performance on PlayStation 4 and PC. It didn't change the game's DNA, but it gave players a second shot at really diving in. And for those who stuck with it, the payoff was worth it. It's not for everyone. This isn't a pick-up-and-play RPG. It demands focus. But if you're down for a challenge and want something that breaks away from the formula, this is one of the most underrated gems out there.
Take that line down. So off.
Okay, I'm ready. Get this show on the road.
When Cyberpunk 2077 dropped, it felt like the whole gaming world held its breath, only to collectively faceplant. What was supposed to be a groundbreaking RPG turned into one of the most disappointing launches in recent memory. On PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, it was a disaster. Bugs everywhere, crashes, missing features, and performance so bad it barely ran. Even on PC where it was playable, it still felt half-baked. Expectations were sky-high, and CD Projekt Red simply wasn't ready. But here's the thing, this isn't where the story ends. In 2023, the game got a second life with Update 2.0. And it wasn't just some minor patch. The entire system got reworked. Skills actually mattered. Combat felt tight. Police didn't just teleport out of thin air anymore. Night City went from looking cool to actually feeling alive. One of the coolest upgrades with the 2.0 overhaul was how cyberware finally felt essential instead of just flavor. Now your implants aren't just passive buffs. You actually have to manage capacity, think about builds, and make real trade-offs. Want to jump higher, slow time, punch through walls, or go full stealth ninja? It's all in how you mod your body. It turned character progression into something way more personal, where your setup reflects your playstyle instead of just stacking stats. Then, Phantom Liberty dropped, and that expansion changed everything. It added a whole new district, new characters, and a spy thriller storyline that hit harder than most full games. It brought the emotional depth, the tension, the stakes, everything the base game was missing at launch. Now, Cyberpunk 2077 feels like the game we were all promised back in the day. Not perfect, but damn close. If you passed on it before, now's the time to jump in. Just do yourself a favor, skip the old-gen consoles.
Fiber of my being is afire.
Back when Vampyr dropped, most people didn't even notice. It flew way under the radar, and honestly, that's a shame. It's one of those games that tried something different, really different. Built by the same devs who made Life is Strange, this wasn't your usual emo teen drama. Instead, they gave us a gritty, blood-soaked dive into post-war London, where you play as a doctor who wakes up one day as a vampire. Yeah, not exactly a smooth career shift. What made Vampyr stand out wasn't just the setting or the supernatural twist. It was the moral weight behind every decision. Feeding on someone makes you stronger, sure, but it also kills off their story, their relationships, and reshapes the world around you. And that's where the game hits hard. You're not just mowing down enemies, you're choosing who lives and who dies in a city already on the edge. Another thing that really sets Vampyr apart is how deeply connected every NPC is to the world. You're not just looking at random background characters. They've all got names, jobs, secrets, and ties to other people in the district. You can investigate them, gather clues, unlock their personal stories, and the more you know about someone, the more XP you'll get if you decide to feed on them. That creates this twisted incentive to get close to people, learn everything about their lives, and then decide whether or not to take them out. Now, the gameplay wasn't perfect. The combat felt rough, especially early on. But the atmosphere, the music, the dialogue, it all came together to create something moody and memorable. Over time, the game found its audience. People started seeing past the flaws and appreciating the risk it took. If you missed it, there's no better moment to dive in. It's cheap, it runs better now, and it delivers one of the most original vampire stories gaming has seen in years.
This shouldn't be possible.
Back when Xenoblade Chronicles X dropped on the Wii U, it kinda got lost in the shuffle. It wasn't what fans expected. The first game was all about emotional storytelling and deep characters, but this one? It went full science fiction sandbox. Giant open world, crazy vertical exploration, and mechs. Yeah, actual pilotable mechs. It was wild. But that shift threw a lot of people off. Instead of guiding you through a tight narrative, the game dropped you into a massive alien world and said, figure it out. That freedom was ahead of its time, but without the familiar structure, a lot of players bounced off. On top of that, the localization dragged. By the time it hit the West, the Wii U was already limping, and most people just skipped it entirely. But here's the thing. Xenoblade Chronicles X wasn't a misstep, it was a bold leap. The systems under the hood were insanely deep. From building squads and managing gear, to unlocking new traversal tools and customizing your mech, there was always something new to master. And the world? Massive, alien, and actually worth exploring. One thing that really gave the game its own identity was the soundtrack. Hiroyuki Sawano went all in with a mix of electronic, orchestral, and even vocal-heavy tracks that felt like they came straight out of a big-budget anime or space opera. It didn't sound anything like the first Xenoblade, and that threw some fans off too, but once it clicked, it brought a whole different energy to the exploration and battles. Now that the remaster is out on the Nintendo Switch, this underrated beast is finally getting a second chance. When Mass Effect 3 came out, it got hit hard. Not because the game was bad, but because the ending left a lot of people feeling let down after investing so much into the trilogy. Fans had built their own version of how things should wrap up. And when that didn't happen, the internet exploded. But if that's all you remember about it, you're missing the bigger picture. This game brought everything to a head. Every choice from the previous games finally mattered. The tension was real, the stakes were massive, and the payoff, outside of the ending, was packed with unforgettable moments. The combat felt sharper, the pacing was tight, and the character arcs hit just as hard as ever. Even with a few squad mates missing from earlier titles, the connections you build still feel personal and intense. Combat also got a serious upgrade. It felt faster, more responsive, and way more fluid than before. You could finally roll, take cover more naturally, and swap weapons mid-fight without it feeling clunky. Powers chained together better, and every class had tools that felt impactful. Biotics slammed enemies into walls. Tech users could strip defenses and overload shields in seconds, and gunplay actually felt tight. What really made Mass Effect 3 hit different was the atmosphere. You could feel the galaxy falling apart around you. Every hub area had that looming sense of desperation, people packing up, saying goodbye, trying to survive. Even the Normandy felt heavier this time. Crew members were tired, some broken, and every conversation reminded you that time was running out. It wasn't just a mission anymore, it felt like you were holding everything together with duct tape and hope, and somehow, that made every win feel earned. And yeah, the backlash was loud, but since then, BioWare patched things up. The Legendary Edition smoothed out the rough edges, reworked parts of the ending, and bundled everything into one clean, updated experience. It's like seeing the game the way it was always meant to be played. If you skipped it back then, or quit halfway through, now's the time to come back. Mass Effect 3 still delivers one of the most epic sci-fi rides out there.
The area is clear.
So now I want to hear from you. Which of these RPGs do you think got the short end of the stick, and which one deserves even more love? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm always reading and jumping into the convo. And hey, if you liked the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and if you really want to help out, consider becoming a member. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.